Yo, so in this video, I'll be installing some ulterior motive Fender Flares. And here's a set I bought from them. Just gotta get the measurements you want, send it to them, and they'll make it for you. And then we just put it on like that. What I do want to mention is, you want to drill your holes. I got about 7 holes here, and I'll be using these clecos to hold it in place, right? Makes your job a lot easier. These are 1/8 clecos, so you're gonna drill 1/8 holes into these, right? And then you're gonna fit it up. And once it's right, you drill the holes into your panel and use this to hold it in place. Then you can mark out everything so it doesn't move around. And also, after you drill your holes on the back side here, there will be burrs on these holes, so you want to knock those down so when you fit it up, it sits flush with the panel, right? That way it's true to what you want. So I got drill on each side here, got the clecos on. And what I do want to mention is you want to get your measurements from the bottom of this flare to anywhere as a reference line and make sure it's equal on both sides. And then that way when you do the other side, you just follow the same measurements. That way it's, it's as close as it can get to what you want, right? So now I'm gonna drill the rest of these holes and put in our clecos. I'll start with the bottom one, drill those holes, put the clecos in, and I'll drill these holes, put the clecos in, and I'll do the last one here. And then that way it stretches kind of pushes everything upward nice and tight, and we'll get a good fitment. So I just finished drilling and putting all the clecos in. And you can see she's fairly tight. That's what you want. All around. So before I took off my flare, I took a Sharpie and I just drew a line. And that gives me a reference where the flare is going to be welded onto. But now we're gonna have to cut back some of this material here and seal it up so no water gets in and you have clearance for your tire to travel underneath. Now it's up to you how you want to do this. You can go all the way up to here, whatever you want, to be honest. Personally, I'm going for this point right here. And what I'm going to do is use my flare here as a tracer, help me get this arc going. So I kind of already did some measurements, so it's equal here and equal over here. So I'm gonna grab my Sharpie here and I'm gonna draw my line. And this is what I'm gonna cut. This is what I'm gonna cut back. I'm gonna cut off this material on the outside. And most likely I will be folding the material on the back side to where this arc meets, weld it up, make sure it's sealed and tight and somewhat structurally strong. And then we can go ahead and get the flare on. So as you can see, I cut off the skin on the outside. Now we have the inside skin, which we will be using to fold towards the edge here, and we'll be tack welding it all together. What I did was I took measuring ruler and I just basically measured from here to here, so 25 mil. And so 25 mil from this edge down, I add 10, so let's say 35 mil. and that's where that mark is. And I did that all around. So measure the gap here, and then, you know, add 10, draw your dot, and then draw your line. So we're gonna cut off this excessive material, but you don't want to cut too far back, because if you fold it over and you're short, then, you know, you're kind of making more work for yourself. So you want to have a little bit more extra material, and then you can always trim off the excess material. And what is important is you want to make sure that you remove all the paint on the back side here, on the outside here, and anywhere you're welding here, remove all the paint here afterwards with whatever method you choose to do. And any wax, there was wax residue back here in the inside, so you want to, you know, remove it with grease wax remover or whatever you got, because any paint, any wax, any oil, it's gonna mess around with your welds, and it's gonna give you, you know, pinholes, porosity. You're gonna be messing around with that all day, right? So remove, you know, key is preparation, so that way when you're welding, you're good to go. You're not, you know, welding, grinding. And yeah, remove any of this rust here. There's a little bit of rust, so I'll be taking that all out. So I have a dolly here, it's about 2 1/4 inches wide. I'm gonna use this as my reference for where I'm gonna make my slits, right? So I'm just gonna do that. I'm gonna do that all around, and that's gonna give me a rough estimate where I'm gonna put my slits. So that way, all these lines here, I'm gonna use a grinder and remove all the paint on both sides, because later on when you're folding this, you won't be able to remove the paint, and when you start welding, this paint will react to the welds and put holes in your welds. So you want to, yeah, just prepare all this first. You can either remove all the paint here, or, you know, an inch from the weld area all around here, and just do that all along. So I use the hand air belt sander and I remove the paint on here for the most part that I can reach. And then what I'm going to use next is this angle grinder with the Velcro backing pad you stick on. And this is 120 grit. You can use any grit you want, but you want to make sure you remove the paint here nice and clean, but you don't want to be grinding too much into the metal, as that will weaken the integrity of the metal, right? It's already pretty thin to begin with. And then for the underside here, I'll be using one of these abrasive bits. As you can see, it curves very nicely, and you can clean everything back here. There's a lot of odd shapes and curves, so you want to remove all that, because when you put your slits in here, you're going to be welding on this side, and that has to be cleaned, otherwise you're going to have issues later. So the goal here is to cut these lines, and we're gonna bend it back slowly and work our way. We'll come back and work our way, because you don't want to cut too far back, otherwise you're just making more work for yourself. You're gonna have to do more welding. So it's up to you what you want to do, but I like to cut, you know, up to here, and I'll bend it back, and then I'll come back, right? Because if you bend one, you work here, you bend that, it might pull this one back up, so that means you gotta put longer lines back here, some relief cuts, and just work your way in until you can get them all fairly close to here, and, you know, 16 close or even right up, but enough that you can start welding it right after. So I'll do all that, and once it looks fairly good, then I'll slowly start tacking it. And when you're welding these, you don't want to rush it, because heat will distort these thin metal, right? Because when metal heats up, it expands, so you're gonna get all kind of waves in here. If you think you can just rip beads down and call it a day, you gotta jump around. Cool to touch, then you go here and you work your way down. And it's a game of patience, otherwise it's gonna warp on you, and then you got lots more work to do later. You gotta put a lot of Bondo and shit. That's what you don't want, right? You want as little body filler as possible. No filler would be the best, but in this case, you're gonna have to use a little bit to get, you know, nice surface and whatnot. Pounded back the metal as much as I could. They're fairly close, but there's definitely a lot of play now. So when I tack them, I'll hold it in place and tack it one on each side per piece. You don't want to force it up where it has tension, because you don't want it pulling on anything, right? You want it to just accept the spot that it will get tacked to. So personally, I like to put a dolly back here, and I have like a 16 gap, and then that way I can fill it with welds, and the gap's consistent for this whole section, right? And when you tack it, you're not burning your hand either, so you can hold it, let it cool, then let go. So I'm gonna go ahead and start tacking her. One there. One there. And then go up here. So I just tacked each pieces there, one on each side. You see this tiny little gap, and personally I want that so I can fill it with welds. It's up to you how you want to do it. And when you weld these, you're going to take your time, work your way down, and then come back, and weld it up until it's sealed. And then you'll have to do the bottom. And on the bottom, there is all these openings, so you're gonna have to fill that up too, unless you want water inside. So you get all that. Alright, so check it out. Finished welding my quarter panels. I'll show you what the result looks like. That's what the welds look like after I grind it down a little bit. I don't want to take it off completely because I'd rather have material there than not. As you can see, here is where it's grinded flush. I just want to make sure to clear my fender flare where it sits here and flush. But the rest of it, as you can see, there is like 2 mil of material here. That's all getting covered up. And then once you epoxy primer, undercoating, and paint it, like you won't even see the lumpiness as much anyways. The goal is to make sure it's all sealed properly, so then there's no water or debris getting inside your body. You want to make sure you take your time welding this. I literally will put a spot weld there, spot weld here, spot weld here, spot weld here, spot weld here, come back a little away from my previous weld and just jump around. Because if you try to put long beads, this panel is going to be all warpy and shit. So take your time. There's no rush in it unless you want to do a lot of body work later on. And this is what the underside looks like. Those are where all the welds were, and then I grind it down. Left about 2 mil of material left just to hold it. Once we spray the undercoating, you won't even notice it. It's there. But you gotta make sure that It's all fully welded. Make sure there's no holes, nothing. Here's another view of what it looks like. So there you have it. This is the first step to getting your car ready for over fenders or fender flares, is to cut your arch, seal it up properly, and then we'll go from this to this. In the next video, we'll be welding this thing on. We'll get good results.